and the future of the country. Oil futures don't trade on the weekend, so the near term impact of the price of oil is a bit of a guessing game. But President Donald Trump said the U.S. would operate the Venezuelan government for the time being. So that is going to be the focus of this broadcast. And again, welcome to those who are joining. Next, the act, the capture, the apprehension of Maduro and his wife set in motion the final phase of what is called a secret and risky plan to evict, to get him out by force. At 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, Trump gave the order, and this was last Friday, to launch the mission Operation Absolute Resolve, the most audacious, that may be debatable to some, military action in either of Trump's terms is based on interviews with more than a dozen White House, administration, and congressional officials, as well as public statements. So many of us remember that. And as I mentioned in part one, there were some people in Washington, D.C. that applauded these efforts, while some expressed a different feeling. So we're going to go to that audio. Let me go ahead and put up fair use, because it's audio and some will be a little bit of video. And I will be providing you with the source so that you can go and see that is where this information came from. So again, this is Nicolas Maduro, or Nicolas Maduro, flanked by DEA agents. We shall return, and again, happy Sunday and welcome. What you're about to hear and possibly see is courtesy of Fox 5, Washington, D.C., where they're speaking about the protests that took place. There may be some today.
In their opinions as a dictator. Meanwhile, the other side, a few other blocks away, there was another large gathering that were rejoicing on this day, saying this is something that they had been asking for and didn't believe would ever come, where a dictator was taken out of power and hopefully steps towards the country being set free. Now, we attended both protests and we talked to people from both sides.
Supposed to work in James Madison's.
So let's try to get some of this on the screen for you. Here we go. Fair use.
Constitution is for there to be advice and consent, for there to be consultation. We don't live in a place where one person holds all the power. There are three branches for good reason.
We need to be taking care of our own people, and other people can take care of themselves. Like I said, I would like to get him out of the White House. But in 3 years, there's an election. If I want that, I need to be working, knocking on doors, organizing with people. If the Venezuelans want to change their government, they will do the same.
But at the other protests, Venezuelans, they argue very different. Just a few blocks away from the White House, it was a completely different scene as a large group gathered in support of the move made by Donald Trump. Now, they were mostly all from Venezuela, having lived there for years before fleeing to come to the States, leaving behind family in hopes for a better life.
It's a feeling that I can explain it. It's a lot that's going on Venezuelan hearts today. Venezuelan are suffering for many, many years. And nobody can understand that. And today, finally, we have a hope that definitely we know that it's gonna be good. I've been waiting for this day for the last 26 years of my life. Imagine how important this is. Without the support of the United States, we had never arrived to this place. We did everything. We fight with our heart. We lost our friends. They tortured our friends. They put in prison our families. I was a political prisoner, and we did everything. We applied all the non-violence movement techniques, but this regime is a criminal regime. And only with the use of force is the only language that they understand. So we will always thank the United States for making this happen.
So there you have both sides of the expressions that people conveyed to the reporter as it related to the capture, the abduction, the apprehension of President Navarro and his wife. Continue with a little bit more of this again, courtesy of Channel 5 News. And this, again, was taken from protest in Washington, D.C. on yesterday, which was Saturday, January the 3rd, 2026. Today is January 4th, 2026. Again, greetings.
And they want to make sure that none of them have a fight over power or can continue on with the way it was before, because they do want a better place for Venezuela and for those that were there. Passionate reaction all around. Julie, thank you for your coverage.
Absolutely. So we're going to go to another quick audio and we'll be back momentarily. Thank you for those that are joining, and for those that are here, welcome and enjoy. Now, what we're about to hear is audio from NBC News, and you're going to hear Marco Rubio speaking. And we spoke about this briefly yesterday on what the capture was. Was it military or legal? We heard that this was a legal operation. So let's hear from the man himself, Marco Rubio. Again, greetings and welcome.
Back to meet the press.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I want to start with this big picture question. Is the United States now at war with Venezuela?
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations, not a war against Venezuela. We are enforcing American laws with regards to oil sanctions. We have sanctioned entities. We go to court. We get a warrant. We seize those boats with oil, and that will continue. So clear, and we would continue to reserve the right to take strikes against drug boats that are bringing drugs towards the United States that are being operated by transnational criminal organizations, including the Cartel de los Sols. Of course, the leader of that cartel is now in U.S. custody and facing U.S. justice in the Southern District of New York, and that's Nicolas Maduro. So we made a big progress in that regard.
Mr. Secretary, who is in charge? Are you running Venezuela right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep people, fixating on that. Here's the bottom line on it. We expect to see changes in Venezuela. Changes of all kinds, long-term, short-term. We'd love to see all kinds of changes. But the most immediate changes are the ones that are in the national interest of the United States. That's why we're involved here, of how it applies and has a direct impact on the United States. Okay? We are not going to be able to allow in our hemisphere a country that becomes a crossroads for the activities of all of our adversaries around the world. We just can't allow it. We can't have a country where the people in charge of its military and in charge of its police department are openly cooperating with drug trafficking organizations.
Okay, we're going to stop right there. I'm going to grab a few comments. Jeff says, Rubio thinks we are stupid. Drug trafficking is the story. and he makes a reference to Hernandez. I'm going to show you a couple of things that some of you may be living under a rock and forgot all about it, but trust and believe I'm going to come with my own receipts just for those who have in the past in my chat have been one-sided, and I believe I could be wrong, but turn a blind eye because you're so loyal to certain movements. I understand that, but we must be fair and never forget. And George asked the question, isn't Maduro's government still in charge? TB says, Pirates of the Caribbean. Ha 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 ha, the world leaders. And Save says, just depends on if they like the drug dealer. Now, is Don Jr. behind this? And give us your oil. Next, go down a little bit. Trump's abduction, again, abduction, while he is president, will be war against the United States or not? Should have asked. Elections? What's an election? And we have Kathy who asked the question, since when is there a policy? Why don't Congress and Senate know? I'm not sure if it's the point that they don't know. Again, I have a lot of opinions, but I'm going to reserve them from another time. So the very first comment / question was, Rubio thinks we are stupid. Drug trafficking is the story. Then he mentioned Hernandez, which brings me to this. Does anybody remember the man on the screen? Take a good look. Yeah, and maybe this picture is better. Ring a bell to any of you? Well, if not, maybe this will help. During the presidency of Juan Orlando Hernandez, 2014 to 2022, Honduras was known for a large-scale drug trafficking, corruption, as well as for its severe human rights violations, especially targeting defenders of land, environment, and journalists. He seems to be a very, 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 as Donald Trump would say, very, very, very bad man. So is the dictator. Madura's. But there's a little bit of a difference here. Something that some of you may have forgotten, and I'm going to have you remember, for those of you who like to play the game of remember what I want, forget what I want, not here on this channel. On November the 28th, 2025, one day before my birthday, President Donald Trump announced on social media that he would issue a full and complete, not incomplete, not half, but a full and complete pardon to Hernandez. An announcement that immediately raised serious concerns given the gravity of Hernandez's convictions. Just 3 days later, on December the 1st, just a little over a month ago, President Trump formally granted the pardon, and Hernandez was released that day on December the 1st, 2025. This abrupt reversal, okay, reversal came despite Hernandez's 45-year sentence. This man was sentenced for 45 years, but that's all gone away. Poof, be gone. Issued in June of 2024. June of 2024. Wowzers. After a United States federal jury found him guilty of what? What do my big eyes say and see? A federal jury found him guilty of conspiring to import cane into the United States and committing related firearms offenses. Yet for reasons, he was pardoned. I want that to sink in. Go ahead, take a good look. So I asked the question again, as Jeff asked and stated, Rubio thinks we're stupid. Drug trafficking? Drug trafficking. Let me remind you one more time. This man was to serve 45 years. Federal grand jury found him guilty of conspiring to import cane into the United States and committing related firearms offenses. On November 28th, President Donald Trump announced that he would issue a full and complete pardon, and 3 days later, December the 1st, Hernandez was formally granted the pardon and released that day. So I'm going to have you all sit there who's defending this and saying it's all about drug trafficking and think about it and come up with your own reasons, your own thoughts as to why someone who was very, very bad and did all of these things and convicted was pardoned. What prompted the pardon? I'll wait. So let's continue to listen to Marco Rubio dig a deeper hole by using his own words. I just showed you what happened just a little while ago. And we're listening to Marco Rubio,
With drug trafficking organizations.
Secretary of State. He's talking about drug trafficking. Drug trafficking. Marco. Hello? Is anyone home upstairs? Or did you forget about Hernandez? Did you think that some people forgot about Hernandez, who was given a full pardon? Let's continue.
We're not going to allow that. These things are direct threats to the United States.
You're not going to allow that, but gotta calm down. What happened right here in this picture and right here? I'm gonna leave this up while you speak. while you sit here and play in the faces of people.
And we intend to use every element of leverage that we have to ensure that that changes. The one I would point everyone to is that our military is helping the Coast Guard conduct a law enforcement function, which is not just the capture of Maduro, but the enforcement of our sanctions. We go to court, we get a warrant, we seize the boats. And we think this is tremendous leverage, incredible, crippling leverage, which we intend to continue to use until we see the changes that we need to see that are benefit to the American people. And by the way, we believe to the people of Venezuela as well.
But Mr. Secretary, I think there's a lot of questions about who the point people are during this transition. President Trump said we're going to run the country.
So let's get to that. What exactly does that mean? Who's going to run the country? President Trump said that we, meaning the United States, would be running the country. Does he already have a plan set in place? Because as of yesterday's broadcast, there wasn't. He just said the people behind him, Marco Rubio was one of them. Let's continue. And welcome everyone to Trump, We Will Run Venezuela, Part 2. I'm your hostess, Lise. And if you would be so kind, please double tap your screens, or depending upon the devices you are listening to, give this a thumbs up. Comments are welcome. Just be respectful. I thank you all so much. Again, happy Sunday, happy January, and happy New Year.
So is it you? Is it Secretary Hegseth? Who are those people who will be running the country specifically?
Well, it's not running policy. The policy with regards to this, we want Venezuela to move in a certain direction because not only do we think it's good for the people of Venezuela, it's in our national interest. It either touches on something that's a threat to our national security or touches on something that's either beneficial or harmful.
And are you involved in that transition,
So obviously,
Secretary?
I'm very involved in this. Well, of course. I mean, I think everyone knows I'm pretty involved on politics in this hemisphere. Obviously, the Secretary of State and National Security Advisor are very involved in all these elements. The Department of War plays a very important role here, along with the Department of Justice, for example, because they're the ones that have to go to court. So this is a team effort by the entire national security apparatus of our country, but it is running this policy. And the goal of the policy is to see changes in Venezuela that are beneficial to the United States, first and foremost, because that's who we work for, but also, we believe, beneficial for the people of Venezuela, who have suffered tremendously. We want a better future for Venezuela, and we think a better future for the people of Venezuela also is stabilizing for the region and makes the neighborhood we live in a much better and safer place.
Mr. Secretary, I think there's a lot of questions about who the point people are during this transition. President Trump said we're going to run the country.
So to me, in my opinion, he's talking in circles, but let's continue to listen just a little bit. Again, this is Marco Rubio, Secretary of State.
Under the control of adversaries of the United States, not benefiting the people of Venezuela and stolen by a handful of oligarchs around the world, including inside of Venezuela, but not benefiting the people of that country. You know, we've seen how our adversaries all over the world are exploiting and extracting resources from Africa, from every other country. They're not going to do it in the Western Hemisphere. They're not. That is not.
Let's do a hard stop right there. I'm glad he said that. I'm glad he said that. Hopefully you all can see this. He mentioned regions and he mentioned Africa. You do know, or you may have heard, that Nigeria was hit, and it's all in the guise of Christians and things of that nature. But I want to bring attention to something, and it's lithium deposits. Africa, Mother Africa, holds significant lithium deposits with major resources in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Mali, Zimbabwe, Ghana, Namibia, and emerging potential in Nigeria and Rwanda, contributing about 6% of global reserves, primarily in magmatic deposits. Though extraction faces governance, environmental, and human rights challenges. A global rush for battery materials. We've all heard of lithium batteries. Zimbabwe, DRC, Mali, Ghana, and Namibia are key players, with Zimbabwe aspiring to be a major global supplier, exporting largely to China. China. I'm trying to get President Trump's voice. China. China for battery manufacturing. But up here in bold, you see it says emerging potential in Nigeria and Rwanda. There's another quick clip here. This is from Nigeria. Trump threatens war on Nigeria to save Christians. Is this a real war or a created war? At the same time, in northern Nigeria, Boko Haram and other ISIL or ISIS-affiliated armed groups have launched attacks for more than a decade, unaliving thousands and forcing hundreds of thousands to be displaced, as the groups attempt to impose harsh interpretations of Islamic law in the country's mainly Muslim north. Though the victims of violence are from different cultures and religions, the attacks have led to the United States President Donald Trump threatening to invade Nigeria, stating, "Guns a-blazing," over what white right-wing lawmakers in the United States allege as a Christian genocide. Again, guns a-blazing over what right-wing lawmakers in the United States allege to be Christian genocide. So I'm going to let you think on that for a moment. So it's possible we're looking at oil and perhaps lithium. Let's continue to listen to Marco Rubio, courtesy of NBC News.
Read our national security strategy. He is serious about it, and he's going to do something about it, and we're doing something about it.
Let me ask you about oil. The president says the U.S. is taking over the oil. The question is, I guess, if the purpose of the operation was to capture Maduro and bring him to justice, why does the United States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry?
Well, we don't need to. First, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States.
We don't need to. We don't need Venezuelans' oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. Remember, that is coming from Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Have specific
Simple as that.
oil
We
companies.
also want to see that oil and the proceeds from it. Hold on. We want to see the oil proceeds of that country benefit the people of Venezuela. Why have 8 million people left Venezuela? 8 million, the single largest mass migration probably in modern history, left Venezuela since 2014 because all the wealth of that country was stolen to the benefit of Maduro and his cronies in the regime, but not to the benefit of people of Venezuela. You know how destabilizing 8 million migrants is? The number one fear that Brazil has, that Colombia has, that all these countries in the region have about what's happening in Venezuela and our involvement is they're afraid of another mass migration event. That's what they fear. This is deeply destabilizing stuff. It's not going to continue to happen. They are not going to come from outside of our hemisphere, destabilize our region in our own backyard, and us have to pay the price for it. Not under President Trump.
Let's talk big picture here. U.S. regime change, historically speaking, has not gone very well for the United States. In Iraq, in Libya, to name a few examples. Can you assure Americans, people of the United States, that this time will be different?
Well, here's what's happened. We've got this phobia built up and this sort of thing that's it's like, number one, most of the experts that people have on television, I watch these experts and it's clown hour. Okay, these are people that have focused their entire career.
You're absolutely right on that. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is absolutely clown hour, and there are many of you, in my opinion, that are wearing the big nose and the clown shoes. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll go to none other than Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is on the heels of giving up politics January 5th, which is tomorrow. Or is she? Again, welcome to Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and welcome. Welcome back, and we are going to NBC News. Again, this is courtesy of NBC News. Marjorie Taylor Greene says Maduro's capture is not America first. Welcome again, and I hope you enjoy.
We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world.
Why do you disagree, Congressman?
Well, I served on the Homeland Security Committee for 3 years, and I am overwhelmingly in support of a strong border. I impeached Secretary Mayorkas. Those were my articles of impeachment that passed the House because fentanyl overdoses skyrocketed to 280% in my own district. And the majority of American fentanyl overdoses and deaths come from Mexico. Those are the Mexican cartels that are killing Americans. And so my pushback here is if this was really about narco terrorists and about protecting Americans from cartels and drugs being brought into America, the Trump administration would be attacking the Mexican cartels. Now, I am not defending Maduro, and of course, I'm happy for the people of Venezuela to be liberated, but Americans celebrated the liberation of the Iraqi people after Saddam Hussein. They celebrated the liberation of the Libyan people after Gaddafi. And this is the same Washington playbook that we are so sick and tired of that doesn't serve the American people, but actually serves the big corporations, the banks, and the oil executives. And so my pushback here is on the Trump.
So this is Marjorie Taylor Greene, and her perspective on what this means. Your thoughts and opinions thus far. Let's continue.
Administration that campaigned on Make America Great Again that we thought was putting America first. I want to see domestic policy be the priority that helps Americans afford life after 4 disastrous years of the Biden administration. I want to see domestic policies that prioritizes jobs and affordable housing for Americans after 4 disastrous years of the Biden administration. And I want to see domestic priorities that put Americans first in regards of health care. Health insurance costs too much, car insurance, home insurance. And these are issues that matter to Americans. We don't consider Venezuela our neighborhood.
So she's saying that she doesn't consider Venezuela our neighborhood. Okay, so if you want to hear this full interview of Marjorie Taylor Greene, again, this is courtesy of NBC News, and you are welcome to go there. We're going to take a quick break, and we will return to Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and again, welcome.
I know you lying. 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 I know you lying.
And we are back. We are back. We are going to return to NBC News, but this time who you will hear and see is, and I know there are going to be some comments in this chat or on the replay, but we're going to listen just a little bit to none other than Hakeem Jeffries, who says the capture of President Maduro was an act of war. Let's roll this tape. And again, welcome everyone.
He's a bad guy, of course, and he's going to stand trial in an American court of law at this particular point in time. It remains to be seen whether the people of Venezuela are going to be better off. Donald Trump claims that he's going to run Venezuela. He's done a terrible job running the United States of America. Life hasn't gotten better for the
Now, there are going to be people that disagree with Hakeem Jeffries that Donald Trump has not done a very good job of running the United States of America. So your thoughts and opinions. Do you think President Donald Trump has done a good, great, fair, or poor job in running the United States? I'll give you a couple of minutes to weigh your opinions for those of you who would like to. Great, good, fair, or poor job in handling or running the United States. Again, this is Hakeem Jeffries. Again, fair use, care of NBC News. He claims that this move was an act of war.
The American people over the last year. Life has gotten worse. He promised to lower the high cost of living. Costs haven't gone down, they've gone up. The healthcare system is broken. Donald Trump refuses to do anything about it to address the Republican healthcare crisis. So the notion that he's going to run Venezuela and make life better for the Venezuelan people, of course, is belied by the facts as to what he's done as president here in the United States of America.
Well, you just heard my conversation with Secretary Rubio. I asked him about the administration's decision not to inform Congress ahead of this operation until
And again, this still is up to debate. There are a lot of people that are saying that there was no need to notify Congress, and there are others who say absolutely they should have been. Let's listen to Hakeem Jeffries and his perspective. Again, welcome, and I appreciate your being here.
President Maduro had been captured. Secretary Rubio saying this was not the kind of mission where they could have afforded to notify Congress. There were concerns about leaks. He made that point. President Trump made that point. Was the administration justified in this case in not briefing Congress?
Well, there's been no evidence that the administration has presented to justify the actions that were taken in terms of there being an imminent threat to the health, the safety, the well-being, the national security of the American people. This was not simply a counter-narcotics operation. It was an act of war. It involved.
So this is Hakeem Jeffries, who, as you can hear and see, stating that this was an act of war. Those of you that are in the chat, or those who may catch the replay, do you believe that this indeed was an act of war? Let's continue again, courtesy NBC News.
Of course, the Delta Force, and we're thankful for the precision by which they executed the operation and thankful for the fact that no American lives were lost.
Amen to that. No casualties. That's always good news to hear.
It was a military action involving Delta Force, involving the Army, apparently involving thousands of troops, involving at least 150 military aircraft, perhaps involving dozens of ships off the coast of Venezuela and South America. So, of course, it was a military action. And pursuant to the Constitution, only Congress has the power to declare war, to authorize acts that take place in this.
So that is, again, Hakeem Jeffries. And for those of you who want to continue listening to that entire video, it can be found on NBC News. So again, your thoughts thus far on the capture of Maduro and his wife, and what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen on Monday? Let's continue. And again, welcome to those that are joining. I appreciate you so much. Please, if you would be so kind, double tap your screens, or depending upon the device you're using, please give this a thumbs up. So now we're going to go to Live Now from Fox and speak about the legal implications, if there are any legal implications, of the capture of President of Venezuela, Maduro.
I do want to bring in a guest to discuss that a little bit further. We have Seth Behrensweig, a trial and compliance attorney, joining us now live. Thank you so much, Seth, for taking the time to be here with us today.
Pleasure to be here.
And we are going to talk a little bit here about the constitutionality, the basically legalities of what happened. But first off, can you break down for me the charges that Maduro and his wife are facing in that indictment over in New York?
A grand jury in a federal court in New York had indicted Maduro and his wife, but principally Maduro. And there is a litany of charges, but really, essentially, it boils down to running a criminal enterprise in a vast conspiracy with narco-terrorism with an intent to possess and distribute drugs, specifically cocaine, possession of fire.
Let's go back to something really quickly, okay? I'm doing this to show you that either, in the words of Ice Cube in the movie Boys in the Hood, either they don't know, don't show, or really don't care what's going on because Marco Rubio in the clip that I showed, unless he's speaking on it on another clip. So I have to be fair with that. Maybe there is a clip out there. I haven't seen any, but there are thousands of videos. So I could be wrong. So if there's someone that says or knows that there is something that Marco Rubio has said, please let me know. We have this individual speaking, and he also is saying it's drugs and, well, under the guise of drugs and firearms, but this is the same thing that happened to Hernandez, but he was granted a pardon. So let's remember that. Please, let's not forget that, because I'm not going to allow you to forget it.
Firearms and running a scheme to essentially flood his drugs and thugs into the United States, thereby posing imminent threat and mortal harm to the citizens of the United States. This is a process that took place pursuant to the federal rules. One of the reasons why this was something that was not very publicly shared within prior times is because a grand jury proceeding under the federal rules is typically done in secret. And these are things that are initially pursued under seal, but the charges are very specific. They're very comprehensive. One of the things that I think is really important to note here is that, contrary to what is sometimes portrayed in the mainstream media, this was not a decision that occurred one day where the president of the United States decided that he just wanted to send in a military force and take out the validly and duly elected leader of an independent nation. Rather, we have a warrant that has been issued under an indictment in New York federal court. And when someone gets indicted and there is a warrant and they are a fugitive from justice, they are subject to arrest. That's exactly what happened here. It is rare that this happens with such military precise execution, but the reason why he's in New York is because there's going to be an arraignment, a hearing, likely on Monday, in front of a federal judge. Arraignment hearings are rather routine. This is not going to be a routine day because this is going to be involving a lot of security, as you can imagine. But this is the execution of a warrant where someone has been duly arrested under United States federal law. This seems to be in full compliance with the federal rules. It certainly is a very historic moment, and there'll be a lot of drama that will be taking place in the.
I'm sure. So again, this is courtesy of Live Now from Fox. It's the title, Trump, Venezuela, Legal Implications of Maduro's Capture. So we're going to go down to a few comments. Again, for those of you that are just joining, welcome. Happy Sunday, happy weekend, and happy New Year. And some of the comments are, it's illegal to remove dictators? Are dictators now legal heads of state? Kathy says, no debate. President Biden put a $25 million bounty on these criminals. Okay. Mr. Big says, imagine a cartel-free Mexico. Allison says, I am sure he figured all this out before he was captured. This is dumb. Larry says, don't forget about the voting machine, Venezuelan connection. And Mohammed says, thank God no more communism. Dwight says, Mr. Maduro rejected 5 offers to take an off-ramp. I do know from my research that he was given the choice to leave, but obviously he didn't, and it was done by force, so it appears. He refused those offers, and now he must stew in his own juice. And 777 Lumberjack says, now we get to listen to the TDS deranged protesters and the TDS, that's Trump derangement syndrome, deranged Democrat cult leaders attack Trump for months to come until the big event. Pam Bondi needs to file a RICO on the Democrat Party. That's interesting. I'll repeat that again. 777 believes that Pam Bondi, who might be under a little bit of fire herself, but at any rate, needs to file a RICO on the Democrat Party. It's doable and should have been done a long time ago to break them of this crap and all name them. In the RICO, go after one by one. It's easy like Tim Waltz find him guilty. They all go to jail, and that's what they do to biker gangs all of the time. Be sure to include activist judges too. Lumberjack had to edit that several times, so let's grab a couple of more. By Bondi, yeah, of course, it was done in a month. And Sustain says, expand your accusation. And Ice Heart says, look how dirty and trashed on New York streets. Okay. Your thoughts on that? And we'll continue momentarily. We are back, and we're going to listen to Fox News, who claims that the Democrats are furious ahead of an emergency caucus meeting. So let's listen to that clip.
Democrats have been up in arms about Maduro's capture, but the administration tonight continues to defend the president's actions.
We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days.
House Democrats meantime will hold an emergency caucus meeting tomorrow following the military operation in Venezuela and the capture of Mr. Maduro. It'll be held virtually. To speak more about the congressional reaction, let's bring in South Carolina Congresswoman, the great Nancy Mace. Always great to have you with us, Congresswoman. Real honor. Appreciate your time tonight. I just have to say, I thought Secretary Rubio hit the nail on the head. You can't, let's be honest, those of us who've been in the Beltway know how this goes. You can't exactly get out there and start sharing all of these details with some congressional lawmakers. First of all,
Remember, this is Fox News. Their opinions are so much in contrast to many, but to be fair, all opinions and thoughts are welcome.
Security aspect, and second of all, they didn't exactly have the timing.
Evan, I don't see a reason to have any congressional action. This was a very surgical military apprehension for a fugitive. It was not an act of war. And so, I'm going to push back on Democrats that say that it is. And look, they've defended Iranian terrorism. They've defended terrorism in South America now with Maduro. And, we've got to make sure that we're pushing back. And Trump was right today. Trump talked about and discussed the Monroe Doctrine and discussed how this was a fugitive that we've got to bring in for the narco-terrorism. And quite frankly, I don't even think it compares to Panama, which is to me, a different situation. Thousands of troops. We had nothing of the sort today. We had no American troops killed in action, thank God. They did a very good job. And the one thing I've learned about Donald Trump and the Trump doctrine is that when he sets his mind to it, he's very surgical in his military movements.
That's debatable, but let's continue to listen to Nancy Mace, who teased about she may be following in the steps of Marjorie Taylor Greene, but that may have taken a detour or a pause for now.
And it's why he's had a resounding success in Venezuela and around the world.
Also, the action in Iran, obviously, with the strikes on that nuclear facility. And I'm glad you mentioned the Noriega precedents. I found it hypocritical that there were some Democratic lawmakers that were suggesting this was somehow unbelievable, when in fact, if you just go back a little bit, whether it's Obama and other parts of Syria, etc., we have seen actions that take place, but this wasn't exactly even that. As you point out, I think very aptly, we're talking about someone who had been indicted in the Southern District of New York.
That's right. And in the Noriega situation, when President Bush was there, that situation was 24,000 American troops for an extended period of time for months during that operation, 500 killed in action on the Panamanian side. We did lose some American soldiers devastatingly in that situation, but this is very, very different. The other thing that I want to talk about too, Kevin, is that Democrats today are upset that Trump said that America would run Venezuela. Well, after World War II, it was General MacArthur who was in Japan, running Japan from 1945 to 1952. And it would be great to see Venezuela to be a free country, engaged in trade with our allies like Japan at some point one day. And I trust Donald Trump and the Trump doctrine.
Okay, so Nancy Mace is saying she trusts Donald Trump and the Trump doctrine. So your thoughts and opinions on that. Again, that was Nancy Mace, and this is courtesy of Fox News. Title: Dems furious ahead of emergency caucus meeting on the capture of Maduro. You're listening to Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and thank you all so much for joining.
I know you lying. I know you lying. I know you lying. I know you lying.
we are back. We are back with part 2 of Trump. We will run Venezuela. This is a member of DW News, and this too discusses the legality of the United States action in Venezuela. Let us roll this tape. And again, thank you all so much for joining. Again, courtesy of DW News.
After being seized in Caracas during a surprise U.S. military operation. Madura.
I'm going to stop right there. Was this really a surprise? There have been some chatter that it may have been an inside operation. So I'm going to play a little bit of this video, just a little, and we'll continue.
Maduro is now in a New York jail facing criminal charges, including weapons trafficking and charges of narco-terrorism. He and his wife, Celia Flores, were seized during an overnight raid by U.S. forces that capped months of military pressure on Maduro and his government. In the aftermath of the operation, President Trump said the U.S. will run Venezuela for the foreseeable future.
For the foreseeable future. Now, I am not sure how long that means, how long that'll be. Your thoughts? Weeks? Months, perhaps? Let's continue.
But he gave few details on what exactly that might mean. Lots to talk about, and we're joined now by Mariano Aguirre Ernst. He's an associate fellow with the International Security Program at Chatham House, and he's advisor to the German Friedrich Ebert Foundation in Madrid. Good to have you with us. Let me start first of all with the question of the legality of the U.S. military action, because there's been a lot of talk about adhering to international law and international, the UN Charter on international law. So is there any argument that would legitimize what we've witnessed yesterday?
Well, the short answer is no. As a matter of fact, by international law, particularly under the UN Charter that was written and agreed by several countries at the end of the World War II, I mean, the countries should refrain, the states, the member of the international system should refrain not to interfere in the domestic issues of other states, and at the same time should refrain particularly not to use military force in any kind of interference. This is the first issue to be mentioned. Second, of course, there are two exceptions. First exception, if you have a threat to international peace, and we cannot really say that Venezuela has been or is a threat to international peace, neither to the regional peace in Latin America or in the relationship between Latin America and the United States. And another exception to the UN Charter.
So let's listen to a few of the comments. One is, Tony says, I hear UN a lot, but where is the UN? Ronnie says, America is and does everything we say Russia is. We are literally tyrants of the world. King Love says, with another dictator, but a puppet of the United States. Wart says, the Trump law, if you have a problem with someone else, kidnap him from his house along with his wife. And one more comment. In this incident, by not condemning the United States, the EU and NATO nations are just double standard cowards. Your thoughts on that? We shall continue. And again, that is courtesy of, let's get back up top, DW News. Again, DW News. And Again, they're speaking on the legality of the actions from the United States and Venezuela. Now, we have listened to people speak a lot about this incident, this attack, this potential war, this abduction, this capture, this apprehension as many things, but we've heard oil. And we're going to Times Radio now and listen to what some people think that this was a Venezuelan oil grab. Trump's plan to squeeze China. Let's go to that audio. And again, welcome to part 2 of Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and thank you so much for tuning in.
China is a major buyer of Venezuelan crude. If Trump in the short term succeeds in inhibiting Venezuelan supplies from getting into Chinese hands, well, China is going to have to look elsewhere for its crude, and that potentially is going to put a little bit of upward pressure in the short term. I mean, China currently depends on Venezuela for something like 4% of its total crude consumption.
During that hour-long press conference yesterday, President Trump repeatedly stated that the priority for the United States after overthrowing Nicolas Maduro was to move in American oil companies and start extraction in Venezuela. It has the world's largest oil reserves there. About 17% of the world's oil reserves are in Venezuela, but its output is low due to decaying infrastructure, mismanagement and sanctions. Ian King is the Times business columnist and market commentator. There's a lot to this, Ian, isn't there? There are different types of oil. There are different reasons for this. Just paint a picture for us of what's at stake.
Good morning. Yes, that's right. I mean, the kind of oil that Venezuela produces is essentially heavy crude, which is the kind of stuff, incidentally, that U.S. refineries in places like Texas and Louisiana are set up to turn into products such as gasoline. Compare that with here in the UK, where obviously the main benchmark is Brent crude. Obviously, the UK no longer a major global oil producer, but Brent crude is sort of known as light sweet crude, essentially. So the kind of crude that comes out of Venezuela is, as I say, heavy crude. It's of the kind of crude that is produced in Saudi Arabia. But a very crucial point you make there, Venezuela is sitting on some 303 billion barrels worth.
Darren Jones, Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, thanks so much for joining us live in the studio this morning. Does the British government support what the US has done?
So I'm going to do a hard stop right there again. For those of you that are interested, you can go back and listen to the entire video that's found on Times Radio. But what you just heard you just heard him mention something very poignant there about oil and control, basically. And again, there's so many videos on that. We're going to go to one more. But I want you to put your thoughts and feelings on this, because it could bring further implications and other issues. So your thoughts thus far on the different perspectives that you've heard. Now, in that last clip, you heard yourselves about the oil and the amounts of oil. Keep in mind, for those of you that remember, just a little over a month ago, Saudi's crown prince was here in Washington, D.C., in the White House. Your thoughts, if there were any conversations with the crown prince as it relates to this mission that took place in Venezuela. I'm not suggesting nor implying. I look at timing, and Saudi Arabia is also known for oil. Just something to think about. We're going to go back to one of my favorite channels, The Midas Touch, and this is entitled Throws Venezuela Main Opposition Leader Under the Bus. Again, this is courtesy of The Midas Touch, and you're listening to the voice of Ben Meisalas.
Venezuelan opposition leader under the bus viciously. He humiliated her. Maria Corina Machado, the main Venezuelan opposition leader who many expected would take over.
And I believe she's the one who ran or won the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's continue.
After Madura was captured, Donald Trump, during that press conference yesterday, said no way. He said the people of Venezuela do not respect her. He said she's a nice lady, but she's not capable of leading Venezuela. Notably, whatever your thoughts are about Machado, let's just deal with some of the facts. While Maduro declared her ineligible to run in the July 2024 election, the person who she backed for that election, Edmundo Gonzalez, widely believed to have actually beat Maduro by a significant margin and actually won that election by about 70% of the vote. So when Donald Trump says that she doesn't have any support in Venezuela and she can't lead Venezuela, she's a nice lady, but she doesn't know what she's doing. I mean, Donald Trump has no clue what he's talking about, but he's really throwing her under the bus. I want to get into why in a moment, but it should be noted that she did everything to get under Donald Trump's good graces. I mean, she kissed the ring, she bent the knee, she did the Mar-a-Lago humiliation ritual. When she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize,
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. She was the one who won the Nobel Peace Prize. So that's interesting. Well, let's continue to listen to some of this from the Midas Touch.
Of American companies, of good people that are going to make a lot of money.
And then you had Machado again promise that if Trump puts her in power, this is what she previously said, that she was going to sell Venezuela's oil and gas and gold infrastructure, to open up the markets. I mean, she believed she was saying all the right things that she thought Trump wanted to hear from her, but not so from Donald Trump. Here, play this clip right here.
And this is amazing, super exciting for me. We will open Venezuela for foreign investment. I am talking about a $1.7 trillion opportunity, not only in oil and gas, which is huge, and you know that the opportunities, because we will open all upstream, middle stream, downstream to all companies, but also in mining, in gold, in infrastructure, power. We have our grid right now has a 17 gigawatt opportunity of energy potential that needs to be rehabbed. Certainly for technology and AI and tourism. Venezuela has 2,800 kilometers of pristine Caribbean coastline ready to be developed. So this is going to be huge. We will bring rule of law. We will open markets. We will have security for foreign investment and a transparent, massive privatization program that is waiting for you.
Now, this is when Donald Trump said, I think it will be very tough for her to be the leader. She does not have the support or respect from the country. Here's what Trump said. Play this clip.
The location of opposition leader Machado, and have you been in contact with her?
No, we haven't.
Mr. President, Mr. President, on Monday.
Oh, I think it would be very tough for her to be the leader. She doesn't have the support within or the respect within the country. She's a very nice woman, but she doesn't have the respect.
Now, I think former Vice President Kamala Harris, in her statement, just nailed it. Here's what she said in the statement that she just issued. She goes, Donald, this is what Kamala Harris says.
Okay, so this is the Midas touch, and we're going to listen real quickly to what Kamala Harris stated according to the Midas touch, and we'll continue. Thank you so much for joining. This is part 2 of Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise. For those of you that are joining, again, welcome. If you're new to this channel, welcome to you. And if you like this video and any other videos regarding the politics here in DC and abroad, please consider subscribing. I thank you all so much to those who have actually subscribed. Thank you so much.
And she sees exactly what just went down, and she describes it the same way I do. She goes, Donald Trump's actions in Venezuela do not make America safer, stronger, or more affordable. That Maduro is a brutal, illegitimate dictator does not change the fact that this action was both unlawful and unwise. We've seen this movie before. Wars for regime change or oil that are sold as strength but turn into chaos, and American families pay the price.
So if you want to continue to that audio and the video, you can go to the Midas touch, and the title of his video is Trump Throws Venezuelan Main Opposition Leader Under the Bus. We're going to take a short break, but again, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you need to get yourself a beverage or a snack, I'd suggest a smoothie or some freshly made popcorn. I have a video up. It's so easy, and you don't have to have oil or butter. You can just sprinkle a little bit of Himalayan pink salt and black pepper or any spices you may desire. For those of you who like a cheesy flavored popcorn, you may want to try it with nutritional yeast. There's so many options that are healthier. So I just wanted to put that little disclaimer in there, and we will return momentarily. Again, welcome, and thank you so much for your engagement.
I know you lying. 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 I know you lying.
We are back. We are back. And our President of the United States, Donald Trump, addresses the capture of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro. This is courtesy of Fox News. Again, greetings and welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. This is big stuff. Appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, there's some other good ones like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer.
For those of you who are interested, you can research Operation Midnight Hammer.
All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly, in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. It was dark and it was deadly.
So again, I applaud the efforts because it does seem, and I'm always going to be fair, that they pulled this off. They executed this with extreme precision. There were no casualties reported. So I must applaud these efforts. Let's continue.
But captured along with his wife, Celia Flores, both of whom now face American justice. Maduro.
And again, this is all to be expected tomorrow, which is Monday, January 5th, 2026, in New York. I am sure that there are teams and ops centers, rather, that have already been set up for the needed security in and around the area. So prayers for safety for everyone. I must say that. Let's continue.
Flores have been indicted in the Southern District of New York, Jay Clayton, for their campaign of deadly narco-terrorism against the United States.
And again, they're claiming narco-terrorism. But again, I want you to reference the release, the full pardon of Hernandez, who I showed you at the top of the broadcast. He was given a full pardon on December the 1st, but strangely, convicted federally for allegedly bringing drugs into the United States and firearms weapons. That sentence was for 45 years. But President Trump, as I showed you, and you can do your research, I encourage you to do your research, gave a full pardon. Let's continue to listen to President Donald Trump.
Citizens, I want to thank the men and women of our military who achieved such an extraordinary success overnight.
U.S. military members who may be listening, or former service men and women, as always, thank you for your service. You put your lives on the line for us daily, whether you believe in the mission or not. You put your lives on the line. So I give you thanks.
With breathtaking speed, power, precision, and competence. You rarely see anything like it. You've seen some raids in this country that didn't go so well. They were an embarrassment. If you look back to Afghanistan, or if you look back to the Jimmy Carter days, they were different days. We're a respected country again, like never before. These highly trained warriors operating in collaboration with U.S. law enforcement caught them in a very ready position. They were waiting for us. They knew we had many ships out in the sea, sort of waiting. They knew we were coming. So they were in what's called a ready position. But they were completely overwhelmed and very quickly incapacitated. If you would have seen what I saw last night, you would have been very impressed. I'm not sure that you'll ever get to see it, but
So I'm sure there are images captured that are on a need-to-know basis. And again, with the way certain things are leaked, who knows if we won't see some things in the future, except for the Epstein files. Let's continue.
it was an incredible thing to see. Not a single American service member was killed, and not
Again, thank God for that.
a single piece of American equipment was lost.
Thank God for that.
Many helicopters, many planes, many people involved in that fight. But think of that, not one piece of military equipment was lost, not one service member was, more importantly, killed. The United States military is the strongest and most fearsome military on the planet by far. With capabilities and skills our enemies can scarcely begin to imagine. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. There's no equipment like what we have. And you see that even if you just look at the boats. We've knocked out 97% of the drugs coming in by sea. 90%. Each boat kills on average, 25,000 people. We knocked out 97%. And those drugs mostly come from a place called Venezuela. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper.
So this is where he gets into running the country, which is the title of this broadcast. Trump, we will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and again, welcome. This is courtesy of Fox News, where President Donald Trump is addressing the capture of the president of Venezuela, Madura.
And judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe.
Again, President Trump, we are going to run the country. A lot of people ask questions or are asking questions and will continue to ask questions to glean a better understanding of what exactly that means. Let's continue with this audio and video courtesy of Fox News.
Proper entry.
He just said judicious, and that's what we're all about. There may be some people that disagree with that.
And take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it essentially until such time as a proper transition can.
So again, questions are, when is the proper time? What steps are in place? What steps? What's the protocol? Let's continue.
Take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period.
Now that is up for debate, but let's continue respectfully to listen to the President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start.
Again, I would implore you to research that. I would also implore you to research Citgo. Again, Citgo, Citgo.
Making money for the country. And we are ready to stage a second and much larger attack if we need to do so. So we were prepared to.
So, again, please be vigilant and keep your eyes and ears to further possible developments.
Do a second wave if we needed to do so. We actually assumed that a second wave would be necessary, but now it's probably not. The first wave, if you'd like to call it that, first attack was so successful, we probably don't have to do a second, but we're prepared to do a second wave.
So if they're prepared to do a second wave, that means there could be an addition of operatives, agents, etc., 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 in that region or en route to that region.
A much bigger wave, actually. This was pinpoint, but we have a much bigger wave that probably won't have to do.
Coming from an intel background, and that was my position in the Fed's intelligence analyst. Again, this is just my opinion, and the views of opinions expressed in this broadcast is that of Dewise TV, also known as Lease, not of YouTube, Google, nor any of its affiliates. And that goes for the clips that you've heard me play and the opinions of others from the audio and videos that you saw. This is something that I would not advise anyone to actually speak on too much. I understand this is the president of the United States. However, there's certain things you just don't say out loud, because even though we do absolutely have a strong military force, we've seen we've seen what small domestic terrorists can do, and you never know who's listening. There are people, in my opinion, that may purport to be on one side, but could actually be on another side. Those people are called traitors, those who infiltrate. So again, I'd be very cautious as to how much information you actually give. You can talk and you can boast, but any intricate details I would be mum about, in my opinion. Let's continue.
This partnership of Venezuela with the United States of America, a country that everybody wants to be involved with because of what we were able to do and accomplish.
That's also debatable. There are a lot of Americans who are against this, and many of the actions of President Donald Trump. Again, you're always going to have people who are in disagreement with things, and you have also people who applaud his efforts. And again, there are some things that I actually agree on, some I do not. There are things that I don't understand, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm about learning and understanding, but also knowing the laws and the constitutions and things that you should and should not do, and things you should be doing, and things you perhaps should not be doing. Let's continue.
Make the people of Venezuela rich, independent, and safe. And it will also make the many, many people from Venezuela that are living in the United States extremely happy. They suffered. So
And
much
you
protected
did,
from them.
you actually did hear that from the clip I played earlier about the protests in Washington, D.C., how you had people here from Venezuela who are extremely happy, excited, and that they give their thanks to President Trump and the administration for capturing this dictator, Maduro. Let's continue.
The illegitimate dictator Maduro was the kingpin of a vast criminal network responsible for trafficking colossal amounts of deadly and illicit drugs into the United States.
But so was the convicted Hernandez that you pardoned December the 1st. I'm not going to let that go. Let's continue.
As alleged in the indictment, he personally oversaw the vicious cartel known as Cartel de las Solas, which flooded our nation with lethal poison, responsible for the deaths of countless Americans, the many, many Americans, hundreds, thousands over the years of Americans died because of him. Maduro and his wife will soon face the full might of American justice and stand trial on American soil.
As did Hernandez, and he was convicted and sentenced for 45 years and given a full pardon. Let's continue.
Right now, they're on a ship. They'll be heading to ultimately New York, and then a decision will be made, I assume, between New York and Miami or Florida.
New York.
But we have people where the overwhelming evidence of their crimes will be presented in a court of law. And I've seen it. I've seen what we have. It's both horrible and breathtaking that something like this could have been allowed to take place. For many years after his term as president of Venezuela, expired Maduro remained in power and waged a ceaseless campaign of violence, terror, and subversion against the United States of America, threatening not only our people, but the stability of the entire region. You all saw it. In addition to trafficking gigantic amounts of illegal drugs that inflicted untold suffering and human destruction all over the country, all over, in particular, the United States.
Again, did you forget about Hernandez?
Maduro sent savage and murderous gangs, including the bloodthirsty prison gang, Tren de Aragua, to terrorize American communities nationwide. And he did indeed. They were in Colorado. They took over apartment complexes. They cut the fingers off people if they called police. They were brutal. They're not so brutal now. And I just have to congratulate our military, Pete, everybody, and our National Guard, because the job that they've done, whether it's in Washington, D.C., where we have a totally safe city, where it was one of the most unsafe.
I disagree with you, President Donald Trump. Washington, D.C., that while there are pockets of areas that are safe, please don't downplay the crime that still continues. And some of the areas that news crews do not go into. So it is not 100% safe. Please do not spread that narrative, because I have videos where I go out and actually capture things. There's still a homeless population. There's still drugs that are going on there. There's still young people losing their lives on the streets. You have plots that have happened. You just had a National Guards woman who lost her life steps away from the White House. So to say it's totally safe would not be accurate. So we're going to stop this here and go on a quick break. Again, thank you everyone who's joined. And please make sure you double tap your screens, or depending upon the device you're listening to, give this a thumbs up. All comments are welcome. And you're listening to Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise, and welcome.
I know you lying. 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 I know you lying.
Okay, we are back. We're going to continue with part two of Trump. We will run Venezuela. Now we are headed to Brian Tyler Cohen, another one of my favorite creators who talks politics, and they're going to be speaking about Trump's Venezuela invasion. And this is from one of Obama's officials. Let's listen to this audio. Again, Brian Tyler Cohen.
Couple aircraft carriers in there, it was clear to me that the United States was planning some sort of military action in Venezuela, and it might be a regime change operation. I was surprised that they chose this super risky option of this extraction of Maduro and taking him to New York. But this announcement that the dudes behind Trump were now going to be running the country is the craziest thing I have ever heard. I mean, it sounds like Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio and Stephen Miller are now going to be overseeing the management of a foreign country. We have no idea how that is going to work in practice. Trump seemed to suggest in his press conference that the former vice president, now president of Venezuela, was on board with this plan, but then she just gave a speech denouncing the invasion, calling it regime change, saying Maduro is the rightful president. So we just don't know what's going to happen.
What about Maria Machado, who, by the way, was given the Nobel Peace Prize, dedicated it to Trump, and then Trump, of course.
This right here is Brian Tyler Cohen. So again, excellent channel for those of you who may not be familiar with it, and those of you who enjoy politics. Let's continue.
Comes in and says that she's not strong enough to lead the country. So, by the way, just as a caveat for any other world leaders looking to throw themselves at the feet of Donald Trump, you gain nothing by doing that. We watched her debase herself and try to give this, to dedicate this award, the Nobel Peace Prize, to Donald Trump. That look at what that's gotten her. But what about this idea that instead of offering this up, if we're going to do regime change from the United States into Venezuela, instead of offering this up to the person who would presumably be the rightful heir to this seat, the opposition leader, he's instead decided that she's not worthy of this spot, and that instead should be, Pete Hegseth and the rest of the U.S. delegation.
Yeah, so Maria Machado is seen as the leader of the Venezuelan opposition. She was not allowed to run in the 2024 election, so this guy named Edmundo Gonzalez ran in her stead. He is widely believed by all international observers to have won that election and to have won with 70% of the vote. So it wasn't close, but then Maduro stole the election. Now, as you mentioned, she is incredibly brave. She is
stole the election. Have we heard this before?
fought against the Maduro regime at great personal risk to herself. She was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. She actually snuck out of the country, did this daring, ocean escape of the country to try to get to the ceremony in time, and then dedicated the Peace Prize to Trump. But in his remarks today, Trump sounds like he is eager to just hand leadership over to Maduro's handpicked vice president and the kind of current leadership of the country, whether it's political or military. And what I think that tells us is that he doesn't give a shit about human rights. He doesn't care about the opposition. He doesn't care about the Venezuelan people. He cares about the fact that Venezuela has something like 17% of the world's known oil reserves. And he thinks,
I know you lying. 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 I know you lying.
And we are back. We are back with part two of Trump. We will run Venezuela. I'm your hostess, Lise. We're going to the Times Radio as we close this out. And again, this is courtesy of Times Radio, and the title is Trump Has Given Away Game. And again, welcome, and thank you so much for tuning in.
And nothing is going to change for the Venezuelan people unless these people decide to relinquish power.
Hi, I'm Fergus McPhee, and welcome to the Trump Report on Times Radio. This is our first episode of 2026, and we are recording unusually on a Saturday, which will become clear very, very soon why. Joining me today is Malcolm Nance, former US Navy's intelligence. Malcolm, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm not sure it's my pleasure, but
more direct military intervention, and I guess you've been proved right this morning.
Well, unfortunately, all the signs have been here since I think we first spoke about this in September. And the signs were out there that the United States was going to perform some form of military operation. All the U.S. military forces missed Thanksgiving, missed Christmas, missed New Year's. So it was all culminating into an operation that apparently unfolded very much earlier this morning. I got notice at 2 a.m. when I usually get up to write at 3:30, but I got up at 2 for a moment, checked the news, and the first strikes were hitting the city at that point. But I think it's important for your listeners and to understand just exactly what's happened here. If this seems vaguely familiar, it's because it is very close to what happened in 1990 with Manuel Noriega in Panama, where U.S. forces actually had ground dominance there, invaded, and the leader of Panama at that time, Manuel Noriega, holed himself up in the Papa Nuncio, and after a few days, we got control of him, brought him to the United States on drug charges, and charged him with being a narco trafficking kingpin. That's precisely what's happened here. However, there are some factors that we're going to have to wait for more clarity.
So, that is an excellent broadcast. Again, courtesy of Times Radio. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you double tap your screens and your thoughts and opinions on this attack, this capture of Maduro and his wife, and what you think may happen in court tomorrow, Monday. Again, I'm your hostess, Lise, and enjoy your Sunday, and I will be back with another video.